Okay, so now let's go ahead and kind of visualize the results as a layer by drawing the image onto the map as a map layer. The first thing I'm going to do just in prep is to go through and comment out all of the print statements that we've done. And I don't want to delete it. I want these to be there if I need to kind of recheck it without having to retype stuff. But I just don't want the computer to execute those lines. So when I hit run now, you should get kind of nothing. Um, and that's going to make this run a little bit faster. And it's also just not asking, it's not asking the Earth Engine servers the Google servers to do work that you no longer need. So then I'm going to go ahead and copy the clipboard and go up here and paste it in for the starter snippet for this step. So we're visualizing the results as a layer, which is kind of a separate step from processing the image collection. So I tend to kind of mark it off that way. And the first thing I'm asking you to do is set the base map. And I've kind of left this blank because I wanted you to kind of remember how to do that. So do you remember this bit? You want to kind of call the map and you're going to need, set options, I think. And then let's go to hybrid to get more of the satellite view when we hit run. And that should do it. Mhm. There it is. Um, so there's that. And then the next thing is that I've loaded some community palettes. So this is a module that was written by a person, Gina is the name of the person, and along with Justin Brayton. And so let's go ahead and just look at this site for a second. If I type in Earth Engine community palettes, um, here it is. It's a really nice resource that Justin and Gina kind of put together that is has a bunch of palettes that we can use. And so I've done this first step for you. It just basically says call this, and then we'll go through a little bit about what you get here. But here's a visual, like it's giving you access to all of these palettes so that you don't have to kind of make them up on your own. You can just kind of grab good ones, or at least start with examples of good ones. We'll talk a little bit more about choosing color ramps when we go in a couple weeks when we have we focus on it a little bit more. For right now, I just wanted to kind of show you, like if you say print, and I'm gonna just do this routine of saying give me my palettes, my label for what's coming, and then you just say palettes, and then I'm going to throw that on some extra lines and wink at it at the end. And if I click run, it should print out all of whatever is in this variable that we call palettes. And, uh, and if it's going to run, it's going to often, when you call on modules, it slows your script down a little bit. And that's just kind of the way it works. It looks like I called on this. It should only do this once, so let me just save this and hit run. You should only get this printing out one time, and so I'm going to wait for it. There it is. All right. And so the idea is that it's basically it's a dictionary that has all of these categories. And if you go in, if we look at, say, Brewer, sorry, this is named after Cindy Brewer, who is a cartographer from Penn State, and she has all of these palettes. And then if you look into any of them, I think we're going to be using maybe some of the red, blue ones. But if we um, go into the red, blue, you'll see there's lists of different um, uh, red, blues, and then boom, and then these don't look like it, but these are actually codes for color. So the idea is that it's defining color palettes for you. Again, we'll get more into this in the future, but if you look at this, you can see that color brewer, what was that, the RD blue that we were just looking at? It's probably under diverging, and there it is, this diverging color ramp. Okay, so that is calling all of that. So then what we want to do is basically define our visualization parameters. So I have this commented out because if you uncomment it, it's going to be angry. But I'm giving you the basic template is that we need to define a dictionary that says what band do we want to kind of use as a layer, what's the minimum and maximum data value that we want to then stretch a color palette over. And so the band should be whatever we called it. And it's this thing right here, right? And so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to paste it in there. And I'm going to basically use, even though there's only one item, I'm going to put it as a list. And that should, because as we move forward, we're probably going to be selecting more than one band. For the values here, I was going to suggest we just go with -40 and 40. And then we're going to grab as our palette, we're grabbing from the palettes, so from this thing that we, defined here. So from this variable, we're going to grab the color brewer, and from color brewer, we're going to grab the red blue, which is this one here. And then from the red blue, we're going to grab the one that has 11. Is that fair? So it has 11 colors going from red to white to blue. And so if you look at it, we're basically grabbing this one, and what all this gobbledygook is just it just kind of allows you to choose, like, do you want it to go from red to white to blue, or do you want to define the transition from red to white? And as you move from using just 3 colors to define this palette to using 5 to using more colors, you're being able to control a little bit more the kind of the transitions. Is that fair? We'll talk about this a little bit more as we go, but right now we should just have that. So if I hit run, you shouldn't get any payoff here, but you could at least say print viz, and just maybe say this is my viz parameters. Viz just meaning my visualization parameters, and then there's that, and it should at least see that what we are grabbing is the bands, the max and the min, and then the palette, which is a list of these 11 colors. Is that fair? So we've kind of grabbed what was there in this red blue 11 bit. We've grabbed this thing, and now this set of 0 to 10 should be right there. Does that work? I think that's right. Okay, cool. And so then the last thing we need to do, I'm going to uncomment this, because again, I think it would cause some faults if I had that link. So now we need to add the layer. So this is going to be a really bread and butter, like you do this almost anytime you're working in Earth Engine and you want to see a visualization of your data set, you're going to need to use this add layer command. So the method takes 5 arguments, but some of them are optional, and we're just going to go with the first 3. So the first is the EE object, basically the data set that you want to visualize. The second argument is the visual parameters. The third argument is the name. So let's kind of go through this. So the first thing is what's the name of the image that we want to visualize? Step 6, right? Because that's the data that we made through our processing workflow. And that is the average land surface temperature of January in Celsius, right? So that's the first bit. And if I hit run here, what you should get is, it'll think about it. And to start with, you should get an image that's not very well visualized. It doesn't have color. And when you go under layers, it doesn't have a name. But if I use the inspector and clicked around on it, you would see that there's actually data here. We're just not visualizing it very well, right? As you click around, there's going to be kind of warmer places and cooler places. But we can barely see that because we haven't applied our viz scheme yet. So if we said for the second argument is our viz parameters, and hit run, what you should see is that it'll think about it, but it should now give us um, a map that looks a little strange. It looks pretty, and but what we have right here, if I go to an inspector and click on a bright red, you can see that it's actually minus 28. It's actually pretty cold there. And if I go to a blue spot, like if I go to the Merida and click there, it's pretty warm there, or at least comfortable. So the problem is that we are using a diverging scheme that goes from red to blue to show data values that go from cool to hot. And our data values and our symbology don't match and don't make sense. So easy enough. What we actually want to do is just reverse that list, right? And so if we say run, we should now see, as it clicks through and thinks about it, that we now have warmer temperatures represented in red and cooler temperatures represented in blue. And we actually, if we go to the console, we should see that our palette, our first color here, 053061, and if we go to color bluer, go to red blue, and then go to 11, you should see that we've just reversed this list, right? Our first object, our first color was the last one, but we've been able to just reverse the palette, and so it now matches what we would expect. So that so let's keep going though. So that's 2. I still don't have a layer name here. So if I went to here and say this is mean LST for, what was it, January 2023, and I hit run, you have to enter that as a string. But now what you get is the data with the color with a layer. What the? Should have a layer name there. What did I do wrong here? Sorry, put it in the wrong spot. Yeah, so you don't want it to go there. You want it to go here. Sorry about that. Hit run. And there's that. Let's see. Now you have a layer name there. Cool. Okay, a couple other things. You can turn the layers on and off. You can make them from opaque to transparent. So the last 2 arguments in here, shown is whether or not by default you want it to display. So if you type a true in here, that's what the default is. It'll kind of show it automatically when it draws, right? If you said false, it would draw it, but not kind of show it. So it would be there, but you would have to check it if you wanted to show. And that can be handy. You can say rather than false, you can also use the binary 0 for false, 1 for true, if you would like, and it should give you the same result of drawing this thing, but not having it clicked on. So what I mean is it kind of loads it as a layer on the map, but doesn't show it on. So now I'm going to move that back to true. But the last thing is I'm going to say, let's put this at 0. And so this is controlling the opacity. So if you wanted to load the layer onto the map and have it checked, but just completely transparent, you could see now how the slider is over there. And if you move that up, you can basically just control the opacity as it's drawn, as it's first seen. So sometimes this can be helpful when you want to make when you're layering one map on the other and you want to see both layers at the same time, you can make one slightly transparent, like half opacity, and it'll be slightly see-through when it comes through. See? Okay, so those are just the kind of the controls for adding. I'm going to change that back to 1 and hit save and go to the last video.